I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Friday, guys. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. My special guests tonight are Justin Beth and Rick Lass. Now, Justin is a Green Party member, and Rick Lass is the ballot access manager for Cornel West campaign. So one of the things that we're going to discuss tonight is how we go about getting that ballot access for Cornel West's campaign. So welcome, guys. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having us, Sabby.
All right. So I want to start off with talking about some of these states, some of the challenging states in reference to ballot access for Cornel West or for any actually Green Party member that would be running for president. Rick, I'm going to get started with you. You actually helped with Jill Stein's campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about some of these states where it's a little bit challenging to get that ballot access?
I sure can. That's great. Yeah, I worked in 2016 for Jill Stein, and we got on the ballot in 45 states, which was a record for the Green Party, plus 3 others as write-in candidate. And, you know, it was a challenge, and it will be a challenge for Cornel West too. Every state is different. Yeah, every state looks at the petition signatures very much. You know, differently. Some just you sign the petition and it's good, and some they compare your signature to what you signed when you registered to vote, which might have been 30 years ago, or might have been in a government office as compared to being in a, you know, at the mall or whatever where you sign the petition. But you know, our goal with the Cornel West campaign is to be on in every state, and we're working really hard. We've started in 9 states already to start getting petition signatures. We're on the ballot in 20 states already. And it's a real struggle. And, you know, the Democrats and Republicans don't have to do any of this.
Right.
We spent $500,000 in 2016 to get on the ballot in 45 states. We'll probably be spending a lot more than that this year. So, you know, it's a real struggle, and the major parties make it a struggle on purpose.
That's right. Let's talk about, I want to bring up this ballot access map so people can see this. But first and foremost, there's also the potential for lawsuits as well. Can we talk a little bit about that just so people understand?
Well, yeah,
Sure.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong there, Rick. Montana actually won a lawsuit fairly recently to get them ballot access. And I think also Texas were the 2 big wins that we had fairly recently. I might be wrong about Texas.
Yep. And also North Carolina, we got on the ballot
With
2
Matthew
years
Ho.
ago,
Yeah.
with Matthew Ho for Senate on that. Oklahoma had a lawsuit, and we won that. And we still have to pay $35,000 to get on the ballot in Oklahoma alone. But that's much better. We've never been on the ballot in Oklahoma, and it's much better than trying to do a petition drive. And you mentioned Montana. We have an active lawsuit in Indiana because they require close to 40,000 signatures. And we actually just lost a lawsuit there that the lower court said, well, there's nothing wrong with that. So we're appealing that, but you know, it's just kind of sick that we have to do all this to get just to get on the ballot. The Democrats mostly and the Republicans are so scared of competition that they're doing everything they can to keep people off the ballot. Whereas in Europe and Latin America, they have proportional representation. They have 5, 7, 9 parties on the ballot every election. It's not confusing, but that's what the powers that be in the United States say, is that, oh, we don't want a crowded ballot. We don't want to confuse the voters. It's like, really? So we're fighting not just to get Cornel West on the ballot, but we're fighting for a complete change in the system where, people can have choices.
That's right. And Matthew Ho was here last year when he was running for office as a Green Party candidate, and he actually met above the signature requirement for his campaign. And then the Democratic Party in North Carolina basically tried to tell Matthew Ho that we don't think that some of these signatures are valid, right? So this was just a way for them to try to push Matthew Ho off the ballot. We even had video footage of them going to different people's like homes, telling them, did you really mean to sign your signature in reference to this? And there was one gentleman who said, absolutely. Like, why are you coming to my house? If I wanted to vote for the Democratic Party, I would. So these are the types of like tricks that they'll play. And by the way, the Democrats will do it with the Green Party. The Republican Party will do it with the Libertarian Party. Larry Sharp had the same thing happen to him when he was running as a Libertarian in New York. So it happens on both sides. But I want to bring up this map here so people can see. This is the ballot access map. So can we explain to people what the different colors mean first and foremost?
Sure. So the orange states are states where we're actively petitioning. And if you are in one of those states, please participate. I don't know if you can click on, Nevada or Arizona, for instance, so you can see. So yeah, if you're in Arizona, it shows you how we're doing, right? And it then shows you if you want to download the petition, you can do that there. If you're not registered to vote, that's where you can register to vote. If you want to volunteer to help out, that's where you can volunteer. And all the states have that. The register to vote is particularly important in states like Delaware and Massachusetts, because it's the best way we can get on the ballot is if we just have literally like 1,000 people in Delaware that are registered Green Party, or 50,000 people in Massachusetts where they register in the Green Party. We'll get our candidate on the ballot.
Right. And I just want to point out to people, just so they understand, for example, with Arizona, it says required signatures, 34,116. And it says the goal is 70,000. Could you explain to people, Rick, why is it, just explain to the audience, like if the required signature amount is a little over 34,000, why is the goal 70,000? Can you explain that to people?
Sure. It's because people will enthusiastically sign a petition because they want to see Cornel West on the ballot, but they might not be registered voters, or they might have moved. So when they sign the petition and say they were at, 114 First Street, and in fact, they don't live there anymore, or their voter registration says they live somewhere else. So it's just kind of standard operating procedure. You want to get double. So that's what that's all about.
That makes sense.
And some states, Nevada and Georgia, I hate to pick on them. No, I don't really hate to pick on them. They actually compare the signature on the petition with the signature when you registered to vote. So, if you registered when you were 18 or 20 years old and now you're 50, your signature probably doesn't look the same, and they're going to throw that out. Or if you went down to the county clerk's office and signed, you were in a very formal government environment and you signed it very clearly, but then it's 110 degrees and you're at the mall waiting to go to the movie and you just quickly sign it, it's not going to look the same. And so that's why we just want double. Every opportunity the government has to throw out our signatures, it's sad but true, they're going to do it. So we just want to make sure we have enough of a cushion.
Right, because these are wet signatures, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It's
not to mention, like in North Carolina that we just talked about, right? That we expect the Democrats are going to be opposing this effort at every step. So any chance they can get to throw out or question signatures, they will. The state board of elections was, 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5 of them were Democrats, and really worked hard to toss out all of Matthew Ho's signatures. So that's getting that cushion is necessary. I mean, that's definitely standard practice.
That's right. And so for people just joining, the orange states are the ones where you're actively trying to get these signatures.
right. Mm-hmm.
And the light green states, like Maine, for example, these are the ones that the Green Party already has ballot access in. So for people wondering, now, can we talk about these dark green states like Ohio?
So the dark green states are states where we can legally start petitioning, but we just haven't quite gotten around to it. So in those states, we're looking for volunteers to start circulating petitions. We're looking for people that might want to step up and be leaders and help organize a petition drive. Ohio and Indiana and Utah were like about to start any minute now. But states like Idaho, Wyoming, Iowa, Kansas, that's where we really need help right now. And
okay,
if we can get your listeners and people to volunteer to help, that would be fantastic. But
can you go to one of those states, Sabby?
Yeah, I'll go to I'll go to New York because Roger Meadows sent a super chat and said, "Oh, sorry, wrong one." I'll go to Iowa.
Great.
Yeah, does it have like a link there for you, Rick, for them to reach out to you? They have the volunteer links and stuff like that.
The volunteer link is where people should connect to. And, we've got this register to vote link on every state that we have. And just registering green is a huge thing right now. That's the best way to show your solidarity and support for Cornel West campaign. And that's on every state at this website. And then the volunteer link will come to the Cornel West campaign and,
website. Yeah, so we'll go to that in just a second.
Yep.
One thing I want to mention, so those of you who are watching, if you live in Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, and Alabama, they need help. So if you live in any of those states, what you can do is go to the Cornel West website. I think Eric has put the link in the chat to sign up to volunteer. They need help petitioning in those particular states. I do have a question really quick about Massachusetts because I don't want people to get confused. Massachusetts, for example, is one of the gray states. Now, if you click on a gray state, it says, unfortunately, we cannot start petitioning for a ballot line until 2024, right? But if enough people join the Green Rainbow Party, we can get on the ballot that way. This is very important because in November, when we had the midterm elections, I voted for the Green Rainbow Party candidates. So what you're saying here is for people who live in Massachusetts, for example, if they just register for the Green Rainbow Party, that's another way to do it.
It
Absolutely.
Sure is. Justin, you're the expert on this. Why don't you take a minute?
Yeah. I mean, so it's very easy in both Massachusetts and Delaware. You can go to the Secretary of State's website and register online. So it doesn't take that much time to register online and change your party affiliation. Or if you are not yet registered to vote, you can register as a Green Party member in Delaware or a Green Rainbow Party member in in Massachusetts. So super easy to do. Just getting it to people that you know. And anybody that's supporting Cornel West in those states, just get that link to them and say, hey, please just take a couple minutes and change your registration over. I mean, why are you still a Democrat anyways?
That's right. That's right.
If you're an independent, I can understand that. But, this is about a bigger movement right now to get Cornel on the ballot so people can actually vote for him, not just want to vote for him.
Right. So this is the one for Massachusetts. I'm very familiar with this. That's where I went to change my voter registration. And this is the website for Delaware. So delaware.gov. Eric, when you get a chance, if you can put the link to both of those in the chat. But the thing is, if you guys want to help, which a lot of you have reached out to me saying, how do you help? How do you help the campaign? If you go to cornelwest24.org, his website, this is where you can sign up to volunteer. So you just go up to the top here and it says volunteer. And then it's going to ask you, how do you want to help? Ballot access, outreach, graphics, social media, phone, text bank, host an event, knock on doors, or I have professional campaign experience. So if you want to help with ballot access, you would select ballot access.
Hey, Sabby, can I add another point about the registration too? That's, I think, important to think about. Yeah. So when you register as a Green Party member, and say that not all states have a Green Party, though. You can't register as a Green in every state. And some states, there's a Green Party that's not really officially with this, recognized by the state, but you can still join that party. And it's good to do that there, too, because in addition to ballot access, we have to get Cornel West the nomination. And we don't have a rigged primary process like the Democrats, right? So, there are other candidates in this race. We don't expect that Cornel is going to lose the nomination, but we want as many people as possible to turn out for Cornel in our primaries and in our nominating conventions. So getting registered as a Green or just joining the Green Party in your state will allow you to have a say over what the Green Party focuses on in your state. And then when it comes time to nominating Cornel, which we could talk about maybe on another show, which is a whole other process, you'll be able to do that. And eventually, maybe you'll even be a delegate for Cornel West at the nominating convention in 2024. It's going to be really exciting event, I think. So just another thing to think about as registering, joining the Green Party.
Yeah. And it'll scare the hell out of the Democrats if 10,000 people join the Green Party in the next 2 months.
That's right.
And they need to have the hell scared out of them.
And look at one of the orange states, was I think is really important considering the wildfires that we've been talking about in Hawaii. One of the orange states is Hawaii. So if you live there, you see, like this is another one for ballot access. So we wanted to show you guys this map. I have a question for both of you, and I think other people would like to hear the answer to this as well, because I've been hearing people say, well, I'm going to, vote for RFK Jr. in the primary and then vote for Cornel West in the general. The problem, I think, with that, if you live in a state that requires that you are registered as a Democrat in order to participate in the Democratic primary, so you're going to have to be registered as a Democrat to vote for RFK Jr., but then come the general election, you may not be able to vote for Dr. West. You may have to be registered as a Green. This is what people really have to understand.
Well, okay. So in the general election, you can vote for whoever you want, regardless of what party you're registered in. So you don't have to be registered as Green to vote for Cornel West, right? In fact, we expect a lot of people, both Democrats and Republicans, to vote for Cornel West, as well as all the other people that are registered independent or not registered to vote at all. Hopefully they'll register to vote for Cornel West. So, but to participate in the primaries, in some states there are open primaries where you can be a member of any party and vote for any candidate. And in other states there are closed primaries, like in Maine. Maybe Massachusetts is also a closed primary state. And a lot of the times too, I think part of the strategy of the Dems is to try running these candidates to keep you like a registered Democrat, so you can't participate in the Green Party and Green Party primaries, and it really stifles the growth of the Green Party, right? So I say forget the Democratic Party primaries. They're rigged. We know it as a fact, not just the presidential, but Nina Turner in 2018 or 2019 and 2020. Dennis Kucinich, his primary was rigged when he ran for governor in Ohio. So forget those Democratic Party primaries and just go green to get Cornel on the ballot and really help grow something here.
Right. And another thing I want to add too is that when you look at like the Democratic primary, again, this is another situation where some people may not realize this, because let's say, like, for example, for some of the people who are Republican voters and said that they're going to vote, this is the first time they're going to vote for a Democrat, they're going to vote for RFK Jr. They may not realize that depending on which state they live in, they may have to switch their registration over to Democrat just to even vote for RFK Jr. in the primary debate. These are some of those things that you may not realize until it comes time for you to do it. But I think one of the easiest things you can do, so again, like Massachusetts, for example, does have the Green Rainbow Party. So for those of you, I know actually there's a group of people that watch me that are here in Massachusetts with me. You can just register for the Green Rainbow Party of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yep. And let's, look at it clearly. I mean, there's not really a Democratic Party primary this year. Biden's going to be the person, regardless of what RFK Jr. or Marianne Williams might do. So there, people that have that rationale, they want to be able to help select the Democratic presidential nominee. That's not in play in 2024. So it's much better to just get involved with the Green Party and get hopefully Cornel West or a really good solid candidate on the ballot. And just, it's like, let's put the pedal to the metal and get him on the ballot and really start moving right now on getting Green Party candidates up and down the ballot.
There you go.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking along those lines, Ricky. You added it right at the end of what you were saying. When we get ballot access in a state like Vermont, which is also an interesting thing to talk about, we're going to get ballot access for any candidates that we want to run, and not just for Cornel. Same thing is true in Arizona. We're fighting to get the Green Party on the ballot in Arizona, and that's going to allow us to run a slate of candidates. Also in New Hampshire. So the idea is that this is not just about sending Cornel to Washington. We want to send a slate of candidates at the federal level to Washington with him. If you will, a Cornel's Congress going to Washington with him. And I think that's, something else to keep in mind here, where we get these ballot access wins, we're going to be able to field a whole slate of candidates. And because, we really need a movement going into Washington. In Vermont, it's interesting because you want to explain Vermont, Rick, that process?
Well, I mean, we could go into details on a lot of states, but okay. Vermont, we just need, we need to have meetings in 10 towns with at least 3 people willing to sign up, and we get ballot access. So we don't have a petition drive to do that. We just have to get people motivated to go. And in Delaware, we just need to get about 800 people to register in the Green Party, and we've already got over 700. So there's lots of ways to do. But I was more interested, since we have limited time, about talking about Cornel's Congress. We have 8 people in 8 different states that are ready to run for Senate. We have other people that are ready to run for Congress. And this is the time to build not just a presidential campaign, but an electoral arm of the movement that's going to say, okay, we've been fighting for living wage. We've been fighting against the wars. We've been fighting for what have you. And we're not just going to sit outside anymore. We're going to run for office, and we're going to win, and we're going to start making policy instead of just being on the outside.
Yes,
right. So critical that the the electoral arm of the movement comes to pass right now.
And if we get 2 candidates in every state running for Congress, like running with Cornell, part of Cornell's Congress, we have a really good chance of electing 2 or 3 at least. You know, you're talking 100 candidates running for office. You know, usually Green Party win percentage is around 35 to 40%. I think actually when we do have candidates on the ballot. And I was going to say that going back to Vermont, though, the interesting thing I wanted to raise about that, and like you said in California, Rick, on the previous interview we had with Tim Black, in Vermont, it's actually not a Green Party affiliate that we're getting on the ballot there. It is the Green Mountain Peace and Justice Party. So they used to be the Liberty Party. They're now called the Green Mountain Peace and Justice Party, but they're not even really with the Green Party yet. They're very much in line with our values, and they voted unanimously to nominate Cornel West as their candidate, and we're helping them get their party status back, or maintain it. And eventually, I think they are going to affiliate with Green Party of the United States. And in California, right, you were talking about some different groups and different parties that will want to nominate Cornel as well and be on their ballot lines as well, right, Rick?
Yeah, well, part of Cornell's vision is that we're going to build a multi-party left candidate that we're going to be able to bring in all the left parties to nominate Cornell and then to work together, because, you know, having a socialist party, a peace and freedom party, a green party, independent party, it's great, but if we can bring them all together during this election cycle, we could actually create positive changes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to add this because I think this is really important that Roger Meadows pointed out. New York will be the most challenging thanks to Cuomo. Yeah, New York, that's one of the states that is more challenging.
Yeah. Well, so check that out, Sabby. There's a pledge to sign. So in a state like New York, get everybody the link to this. They can go on here and do a pledge to sign. So we know where we can get signatures from day one when we can start. That's important. And thanks for bringing that back up again.
Yeah, no, New York and Georgia and Arizona are going to be the hardest states to get. So the sooner we can get organized in those states, the better. I mean, there are states like New Jersey and Connecticut that can't start yet, and yet they have a very comprehensive plan of what we're going to do on January 2nd when we can start. And we need to be looking at that in every state.
In Arizona, where we have collection going on right now, the deadline is actually November of this year. So we have a couple more months to get, you know, was it 40,000 signatures? If we want to meet the goal. And I'm actually going to be going out on Labor Day weekend, spending a couple weeks in Arizona to help collect. I'm going on vacation in Arizona. So I don't know. I want to go see the Grand Canyon too while I'm there. But, you know, I'll go collect a bunch of signatures. They actually have some ballot measures too that they're collecting for, right, Rick? What are the two measures?
They have one for ranked choice voting, which we could talk about at length. They have one to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, and they have one for reproductive rights. And the Green Party is circulating all those petitions.
So Arizona, you said, is having a ranked choice voting ballot measure?
That's right.
Awesome.
Oh. Okay.
Do it there like we did it in Maine.
And it just shows, you know, the Green Party is not just about electoral politics, it's about issues too. And that's why we're circulating all 4 of these petitions at once.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So another thing I want to mention that you guys brought up that I think is, I just want to reiterate, is having other Green Party candidates run along with Dr. West. I think that's very important. Other congressional candidates, etc. Because the thing is, like, when you're trying to do like a movement or something like this, like the Democratic Party does this all the time. The Republican Party does this all the time. And the Green Party has had success on the local level. In fact, I've covered a bunch of these things. I've had Green Party candidates come onto the show that won on the local level. So when people say that third parties don't win, just keep in mind, they're talking about on the national level, that some of these people have won on the local level, as well as independent candidates and socialist candidates have won on the local level. So that makes a lot of sense, because that's more about creating like a third party coalition movement, having other people run for those offices. If you guys are upset with the squad, maybe there should be Green Party candidates to primary challenge them, or not primary, but challenge them. Because the thing is like, otherwise you just keep doing the same repetitive behavior. Maybe there should be someone that runs as a Green to challenge AOC, or challenge Ilhan Omar, or, you know, Jamal Bowman, like switch some of these seats. And that's how you bring about real change.
I could see some of these people even flip to the Green Party, right? If we actually have a big surge into Congress, I could see somebody like Ilhan Omar breaking away from the Dems.
Really?
I think so. But yeah, you know, I think part of that, the whole thing you mentioned there, we don't win at that level because we don't run enough candidates at that level. But, you know, we got to find the right kind of people with the right kind of backgrounds and experience. Although, really, any of us should be able to run for the U.S. House, right? It's the people's house, right? And we sometimes forget that. But any one of us are fully qualified to go serve at that level, I believe, right? I'd like to see a lot more, and hopefully this will. I mean, it already is inspiring a lot more people to run. So,
yeah, it is. Yeah, we have already eight people who've committed to running for Senate.
That's awesome.
Which, out of 32 seats, that's a quarter of it, and we're very early in the process. But you know, back when I first got involved in the late '90s in New Mexico, you know, we were winning local seats and making significant numbers of votes in federal seats, because we had the very policy of, we're going to run locally because we can win. We're going to run for big states because we can shift the debate. You know, no one was talking about public transportation. No one was talking about a living wage until the Greens started running. And then we won school board seats, city council seats. We were really making an impact because we had that two-prong approach of running for big elections, not necessarily to win, but to change the debate, and running for local offices where we could win, and we did win. And I would love to see that duplicated at the national level right now, I think, you know.
And if we do that in every state, you know, like you're saying, the synergistic, like, you know, the federal level races plus the local races and state legislative races, that's what's going to help Cornel West win to the White House, right? If we want to get Cornel West elected, if we have campaigns like that in every state, it's every part of the state is going to get touched, in, you know, while we campaign, because we have a candidate that's running for a statewide Senate seat, and we got Cornel West also running. Cornel's going to go visit with them, right? It's going to be it's going to work really well together, like I don't know, peanut butter and jelly.
Right. And Roger Meadows, I can't pull this up on the screen because the StreamYard chat froze, but Roger Meadows sent a super chat that said, team up with petitioners running the constitutional ballot initiatives you agree with. So that's just a suggestion that Roger gave as well. Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. I do want to reiterate to everyone, I want to make sure I pull this back up onto the screen so people can see this. Again, ballot access map. This is what you want to look at so you can see, you know, what color your state falls in and what you can do. That is Cornel West for us, cornelwest4.us/ballot access. And for all other information as well, you want to go to Cornel West's website here. I just want to put that back up here for you at cornelwest24.org. And you can find all of this information, everything that we're discussing tonight. But again, if you're in Massachusetts, it's a little bit easier for you here, and you can reach out to me as well. But thank you guys. Thank you so much. I definitely want to bring you guys back on again, like later on, especially as we get into 2024, so we can just, you know, keep reiterating this message so that people know what's up.
Great. Well, thank
Thanks so
you
much,
so
Sabby.
much, Sabby, and thank you to all your viewers. We're going to do this. We're going to get on the ballot in all 50 states, and it'll be thanks to all of you who help out. So.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Bye, Sabby.
Cheers.
Bye. All right, guys. So quick update. The StreamYard chat is not moving for me. That's happened before. It looks like the YouTube chat is moving, but Eric, you'll have to let me know if we get a super chat or something because the StreamYard chat just stopped moving. StreamYard's been kind of weird lately. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they have like some technical glitches. Anywho, very important information, guys. So and we'll clip this so that way you can just go back to this video for reference if you want to remind yourself where your state falls in line in reference to the Green Party ballot access and how you can help. All right. I think I'm going to highlight, well, there's one chat I'm going to highlight because the other ones, like I said, they just stopped moving. I'm going to go ahead and highlight one chat. We're going to give a shout out to patrons, and then we're going to go into the other stories for tonight. So quick shout out to S. Garth Sorensen for becoming a Sabby member. Give Garth a little whoop whoop. Thank you so much. Shout out to Garth in the house. Cool. All right. And let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters, Sabbies, and also members. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a special shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Dimtriana Afori. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate all of your support. Boop-a-boop. All right, guys. What are we discussing tonight? There's been some pretty big news. A lot of buzz happening around. Let's go ahead and share that thumbnail. We have a lot to discuss. Oh, man. Tonight, we are discussing Glenn Greenwald versus Nikki Haley. Yikes. What happened over there? I don't know, but we're going to get into it. Nikki Haley made a really cringe comment in an interview, and we're going to talk about what she would like to do as president and how that would affect all of you, especially those of you that may be heading towards that 65-year-old age range. We're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump's arrest. Yes, it has happened. You can tell by the look of Donald Trump's face in that picture there that Trump was not happy. Not happy at all. That is his mugshot. We'll get into that, and I'll tell you how people are responding to his arrest. And we're also going to discuss we did discuss already Cornel West access. We just talked about that with Jared and Rick. So they explained that to you. We're also going to discuss RFK Jr. events, and we're also going to reveal something that he finally answered that some of you may have been wondering for quite some time in a recent interview that he just had, and where that campaign it may be heading. And we're also going to discuss BRICS expansion 2023. And there's a reason why I have the Saudi prince on the thumbnail. This is very important, and this can really change the game. So let's go ahead and get into our first story here, which is about Donald Trump. If you have not heard now, Donald Trump has been arrested. He did turn himself in Fulton County in Georgia. There are mixed responses about this. Donald Trump has also issued a very quick response as well as to how he feels about this. And what I thought was very interesting is that people are not really responding the way that you may think. Mainstream media is showing you people cheering and happy that he turned himself in. But there's another side that I'm going to show you tonight that mainstream media is not going to show you. But first and foremost, let's get started. with that story about Donald Trump coming right out of Democracy Now! Let's go ahead and get into it. Here we go. There's that face.
Had his mugshot taken. He was released after about 20 minutes on a $200,000 bond. Since March, the former president has been indicted 4 times and faces a total of 91 criminal charges. On Thursday, Trump became the first former president to have his mugshot taken. Soon after the photo was released, Trump began using the photo to raise money for his presidential campaign. He also
So when I saw this, the first thing I thought was, you know what? That's crazy. But at the same time, that's actually smart. You see, Donald Trump, you see how he's this type of person where he can take something that's bad and try to turn it into a positive for the campaign? Think about this, guys. This is part of the problem with the way that they chose to indict Donald Trump. Now, again, this is not to say that Donald Trump is innocent. This is not to say that he should not be held accountable. The problem is the way that they went about doing it and the timing of it. I'll get into that a little bit more later on, but I'm going to tell you the way that I think it should have been done. But the way that they have gone about these indictments, the multiple indictments, I don't think it was the right way. And they've actually painted Trump as a martyr and not so much as a perpetrator. Let's continue.
So posted the mugshot on the social media platform X. It was his first post on the site since he was banned by Twitter after the January 6th insurrection in 2021. Donald Trump briefly spoke to reporters at the airport Thursday after he was released.
What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country.
Trump's former White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, also surrendered Thursday and was released on a $100,000 bond. A hearing will be held on Monday regarding Meadows' request to move his trial to a federal court. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has subpoenaed Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and one of his former staffers to testify at a hearing over the request by Meadows. On Thursday, Willis also called to move the start of Trump's trial to October 23rd after one of Trump's other 18 co-defendants, Kenneth Chesebro, demanded a speedy trial. He's the lawyer who proposed Trump use fake electors to try to overturn the election. A judge has set his trial to begin on that same day, October 23rd. We go now to Atlanta, where we're joined by 2 guests. Hugo Lowell is a reporter for The Guardian who's closely covered Donald Trump's indictment in Georgia. And Carol Anderson is professor of African-American Studies at Emory University, the author of many books, including One Person, No Vote, How Voter Suppression is Destroying Our Democracy.
Okay, let me chime in here for just a second, because I want you to think about the people that they chose to bring on in reference to this conversation. But at the same time, I want you to think about something that Trump said in his response to the media. The timing of this has done nothing but increase Trump's support and has made people feel sorry for Donald Trump, which is not what should happen. Now, how would I have gone about doing this? If you're going to indict Donald Trump, you have to remember Joe Biden took office in 2021, January 2021. They've had plenty of time to indict Donald Trump. Why did they wait to indict him after he announced he was running for president again? That's problem number 1. Problem number 2, there have been multiple indictments again after he announced he was running for president again. They would have had a better public response, I think, if they would have found one of those indictments that they knew for sure would absolutely stick, and they would have indicted him before he announced he was running for president. I think the response from the public would be a little bit different. But the way that they went about doing it, waiting until after he announced, boom, you're indicted. Here's the first one. There have been 4 indictments now. And then there's the multiple indictments that go along with it. So now it looks like, to a lot of people, and I'm going to show you some of them you might be surprised by. Now it looks like to some American people that they're basically trying to railroad Donald Trump. They're trying to find something that will stick to prevent him from continuing his campaign. And that is why I disagreed with the way that they did it. Do I think that people should be held accountable? Absolutely. I don't support Trump. I didn't vote for Trump. I never would vote for Donald Trump. But the timing of it and the way that they did it is very suspect. So you know that it is politically motivated. And that's the problem that a lot of people have with it. And that's why every time he's indicted, he continues to increase in the polls. Let's go back in.
Her other books include the second, Race and Guns in a Fatally Unequal America, and White Rage, the unspoken truth of our racial divide. Professor Anderson, let's begin with you. Your reaction to the booking, this historic moment of the former president of the United States, the first time ever, and it happened in your state, in Georgia.
It felt, given the kinds of pressure that Trump put on Atlanta and put on Georgia, and the targeting of Fulton County as somehow this bastion of corruption, this felt like vindication. It felt like justice. It felt Nina Simone good.
But why wasn't that justice carried out before he announced that he was running for president again? That's my question. They had plenty of time.
This is coming on the eve of the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. In 1963, so many marched for voting rights, for civil rights. Talk about why you see this as a civil rights story.
Oh, it was the attack on voting rights, because in Fulton County, well, in Georgia writ large, 90% of African Americans who voted for Biden. Over almost 70% of Latinos who voted in Georgia voted for Biden. And a little over 60% or so of Asian Americans who voted for Biden. What you saw with Trump's team, their attempt to wipe out those votes, it was the attempt to say that their votes were illegitimate. The votes of minorities were illegitimate, like they weren't real Americans. It was the same kind of assault that we saw in the Jim Crow era, that those weren't real Americans and their votes didn't count. It was as if the march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge and Bloody Sunday was irrelevant. And so it was seeing this kind of systemic and corrosive assault on the right to vote and to have your votes counted. And the way that African Americans were denigrated in that assault as illegitimate, as the source of criminality, as the source of fraud, massive rampant voter fraud, where you could have a Rudy Giuliani talking about Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss as drug dealers, passing out ballots as if they're passing out heroin and cocaine. That kind of assault on Black humanity was the same kind of assault that led to the Voting Rights Act.
So when we talk about the assault on Black humanity, I guess that doesn't count for people like Joe Biden, right? You see why you can look at something like this and just say this is clown shit? And I say it because of this reason. We're going to talk about the assault on humanity of Black Americans. Let's talk about Joe Biden's crime bills. Why would you still go out and support him after what he's done to the Black community? And he did these things by legislation, which is actually worse. Let's talk about that assault on the humanity of the Black community. It just, you see why this is why, hold on. This is why I get so frustrated with we are going to vote for the Democratic Party because they're so much better for the Black community people. This is what aggravates me about that. Because the things that, if you can say those things about Donald Trump, that you feel he targeted Black people and said their votes weren't legitimate, et cetera, then you can also in that same breath say some things about Joe Biden, about he targeted the Black community when it came to legislation. But because Joe Biden is a Democrat and you have been told to fear the Republican Party, you're going to go along with Jim Crow Joe anyway, because you have been tricked into believing that either one of these parties is going to be the best for your community. And the reality is, when you look at it, both parties have screwed over the Black community. But what kills me, and she's a professor, and yeah, she's an author, but what kills me is with like outlets like Democracy Now!, they'll bring on these professors, particularly in this situation. Let me bring on a Black professor who lives there, who teaches there, and let me get them to give these liberal talking points to give the Democratic Party more cred. But when the Democratic Party is doing these same types of policies against Black people, you want to talk about voter suppression? Let's talk about the fact how the Democratic Party has also redrawn districts to push out politicians that they didn't feel would play their game. Let's talk about how the Democratic Party did that in reference to Dennis Kucinich. So, I mean, both parties do it if you want to talk about voter suppression. And what kills me is someone like Carol, who is a professor, very intelligent, living right there in Georgia. What drives me crazy is that she is willing to ignore that the Democratic Party also has been guilty of voter suppression. You can't make these things up, people. You really can't. Let's continue.
Hugo Lowell, you've been reporting on this for some time. We're speaking to you in Atlanta. If you can share your response to what happened last night. As you wrote in your article earlier this week, Trump had his legal team negotiate his booking to take place during the primetime viewing hours for the cable news networks.
Well, Trump basically wanted to surrender in the evening on Thursday because he knew that if he could turn things into a spectacle, if he could turn it into a circus, he would be able to garner as much coverage as he could, and in doing so, distract from not only the severity of the charges, because he's being hit with a racketeering charge in this case, but also from the indignity of having to go through the booking process. You know, him arriving at the jail in a motorcade at the time that he wanted was as far as the special treatment that he got went. Frankly, the moment he was in the jail, he was treated like any other criminal defendant. And I think that's really important because that was not how he has been treated in any of his other criminal cases. He had to be fingerprinted. He had his height and weight recorded, even though it appears that he came up with that figure himself. And then he had his mugshot taken. And if you look at the mugshot, I think you see two sides of Trump. You see a Trump who is trying to look defiant, and that was a face that he practiced in the lead up to the booking. But you can also see a sense of fear in his eyes and the fact that this is becoming really real. And we know from speaking to his aides and his advisors that in the days leading up to his surrender, he really felt the enormity of what was coming down the line.
Okay, you know, you get the journalists from The Guardian, like it's just milquetoast. Democracy Now! Used to be really good. I don't know what happened to them. Maybe they got paid. But I want to show you the side that mainstream media is not going to show you. They're showing you the videos and the pictures of people cheering after Trump got arrested. I want to show you a video here. This is from Simon Utaba. He is a White House reporter. The mainstream media does not want you to see this, but you must watch this. And this is not the only one I'm going to show you. These are people who actually support Donald Trump, and they don't agree with this. And guess what? They're all Black. Watch this. So this is when Trump's crew is rolling in here in Fulton County.
Y'all see it, man. Which one are you in, though? talking about they got everybody.
You see what's happening? You guys see what's happening? Because of the way they went after him, not because they went after him, the way they went after him and going after him multiple times and the timing of it, people are looking at this as like, yo, they trying to get this guy. And I wanted to show you this because I wanted you to see it's not just white Trumpers out there saying free Donald Trump. I'm willing to bet none of these people standing out there actually even voted for Donald Trump, but they might vote for him now. Let me let it finish.
Look at that fucked up.
So that's just one of them, right? This is what I was telling you about him possibly becoming a martyr. And then here's another one. This gentleman, he's kind of funny the way he says it, but this is something people need to think about. Listen to this.
I don't mean no harm, and I don't give a damn who this offends. But if that nigga Trump get convicted of this crime and he can still run for president, I'm voting for his ass. I'm voting for that nigga. I'm voting for him. If that nigga gets convicted and he can still run for president just to see what the fuck he do, because that nigga funny now, Trump is funny as hell, I'm voting for him. I'm telling you right now, okay? So just miss me with it. Make America great again.
You see what's happening? See, this is exactly what I warned people would happen if they continue doing this. And not saying, again, this is not to say that he should not be held accountable. It was the way they went about doing it. Oh, let's hit him with this indictment. Oh, that might not be enough. Let's come with a second. Let's come with a third. Let's come with a fourth. And now people are like, oh no, they really trying to take this guy to task. They really trying to hold him down. Now people, including some Black people who probably didn't even feel Trump like that, now they starting to feel differently. There's another one I want to show you as well. But first, I'm going to bring up this response from Marjorie Taylor Greene, which again, Georgia is her state.
Trump is funny as hell. I'm voting for him. I'm telling you right now, okay?
Sorry, guys. He was still talking. Here we go. Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is her state. I want you to hear her response in reference to this arrest.
Come on.
Marjorie.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So you can pretty much just tell us what you were sharing over there really quick.
Well, this is a devastating day for America. Georgia is embarrassed and ashamed of this Fulton County DA that's abusing her office to go after and arrest the president, the former president of the United States, which is Joe Biden's top political opponent. And I'll tell you right now, in the state of Georgia, I met with GMA last week. This is a statistic that everyone needs to understand. In the state of Georgia, a child is sold for sex. A child is sold for sex over 7,200 times every single month. But here, this disgrace of an attorney, the Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, is abusing her power to go after and arrest Trump. She's not using her power of prosecution to go after child sex traffickers, go after gang members that are linked to the Mexican cartels. She's not doing this to go after murderers. We have the same murder rate as Chicago. This is an embarrassment.
Why are you?
First of all, I didn't know that about Fulton County. I didn't know they have the same murder rate as Chicago. I'll have to look into that. But I think the point that she's making, again, and these are not people I typically agree with on policy, but it's just the spectacle of all of this. The point that she is making is, why is, Fani Willis, which we'll get into her in just a second, why is she spending so much time on this and not spending her time on the murder cases that are unsolved and the child trafficking cases, which, by the way, in reference to child trafficking, I don't know if you guys know this, but Atlanta, what she said about Atlanta is very true. There was a movie that came out years ago. I think when I was in high school, came out years ago. It was a made-for-TV movie about child trafficking that was happening in Atlanta. Atlanta is one of the most popular states in reference to child trafficking. It's crazy. So she's correct about that. Let's continue.
You're talking about sex trafficking. What's your source?
What's your source? GEMA.
Who's GEMA?
Georgia Emergency Management Agency.
Have you had any communication?
A government agency that assists.
Marjorie, have you had any communication with the former president at all today?
Yes, of course. I'm in constant communication with him. I support President Trump. I just came from the Republican debate in Milwaukee last night, landed here this morning. The reason why I'm here is because this is my home state. I was born and raised in the state of Georgia, and I'm here as a Georgian. I'm also here as a member of Congress. We're going to be standing up against the weaponized government. We're launching an investigation into Fani Willis through the Judiciary Committee, and we go back into session.
Last question about Fani Willis. You know that she did get the approval for the trial date to be moved up. Do you have any comment on that?
My comment to Fani Willis is we're going to make sure that she loses her job.
What do you think she's done wrong? What did she do wrong?
This is called weaponized government.
What does that mean?
The weaponized government is she's using her office for politics.
Okay, so
she's going after Joe Biden's top political opponent.
So you don't think Trump made any of these?
So this is another example, and this is a question I want to ask you guys. Do you feel that this is weaponization of the government? I don't know, like this is very, I don't know, man, but this really does set a precedent, because if this does go through and Donald Trump does go down and he is put away in prison, this really does set a precedent for future candidates, if you think about it. Let's continue. A couple more here.
Primary. No, these are fake charges. Why? He's being arrested because he uses freedom of speech. He's not allowed to say what he thinks and feels about his 2020 election. He didn't break the law. Joe Biden broke the law.
Do you have any concern?
Joe Biden
do you have any concerns that any of the other 19
over 50 years using people just like you, tens of millions? Yes, just like you. No, you probably voted for him. That's your president.
Do you have any concerns that any of the people that are indicted are going to take any deals in this case?
I don't know. Those are questions for their attorneys, but I think it's shameful. These people are having to pay for attorneys, have to defend themselves. They're having to be the victim of the weaponized government happening here in Georgia, and our state legislature needs to do something about it.
Has the former president asked you to be his running mate, or have you had any conversations with him about that?
The president will pick who he chooses for his running mate. Right now, I'm serving Georgia's 14th congressional district. Thank you.
This, guys, I'm going to go ahead and warn you. I'm just going to go ahead and give you a heads up. 2024 is going to be wild. If they prevent, I'm telling you, prepare yourself, okay? If they prevent Donald Trump from running for office, I truly believe that all hell will break loose. As my grandma would say, they would raise Cain. I really do believe this will go crazy. Look, whether you believe he's guilty, innocent or not, the thing is, it's up for the American people to decide if they want to vote for him or not. And if they prevent him from running for president, all hell is going to break loose. I will be hiding in my house. I'll stock up on green tea. I'll stock up on my spinach for my smoothies. I'll get my protein powder, and I will be nestled up in my little sleeping bag, hiding from the people, because I'm telling you, it is wild. And don't think that we don't have Trump supporters in Massachusetts, because we do. Okay. All hell would break loose.
You endorse President Trump?
Yeah.
The president's feeling outraged. He's the victim of the weaponized government. This should not be happening. You know, the Democrat Party should be able to run on their own policies, and their policies right now are nearly $4 a gallon gasoline. Their policies right now, they've doubled food prices with inflation. Their policies right now are wide open borders where drugs, over 300 fentanyl deaths every single day in America. Here in our state, over 250% increase in fentanyl deaths. That's Fani Willis, everybody. That's what she's doing. She's not prosecuting these crimes.
Fani Willis is bringing fentanyl into the country. Yeah, you're saying they're weaponizing the government, but he can just fight this in court if it's
Why should he? No, why should he?
Shouldn't every person have their day in court, though?
Why should he even be in court? Why? Because he said my election was stolen? Is that a crime? Hillary Clinton Hillary Clinton said the same thing. Guess what? Stacey Abrams said the same thing right here in Georgia when she ran for governor. And every single Democrat all came out and said the elections were stolen. The elections were stolen. Did anyone see?
What about Brad Raffensperger?
So this is the hypocrisy that some people are pointing to. Now, some people have said, well, it wasn't exactly the same thing, what Hillary did and what Stacey Abrams did. But I think the point that she is making is that why was it okay? Granted, they're saying Trump did more, but she's saying, why was it okay for them to say that? But it's not okay for Trump to say that. Guys, I'm telling you, you have to watch the rest of this. Oh, it's almost over. I'm telling you, get ready. Get ready, because this would be wild if they don't let, I'm going to say it again, if they do not let Donald Trump run for president, shit will hit the fan. And I don't think you want to be around for that. It will not be pretty.
Brad Raffensperger, he straight up said that there was no issues in our, like, our,
I'll
what
tell
is
you,
Brad Raffensperger?
No, I'm sorry. We had to hire an attorney and do a FOIA request because my ex-husband was told that he voted by absentee ballot. You guys look this up. This is in the news. He was told when he showed up to vote in 2020 that he voted by absentee ballot, and he said, no, I didn't. I didn't even request one. And then he had to sign an affidavit to surrender an absentee ballot that he never voted on. And we were accused and called liars for that until we hired an attorney and we had to FOIA the information. And guess what? It turns out it was all true, exactly what he said. So there was fraud in the election, and it's a serious issue. And I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, you should care about your elections.
Have you spoken with Trump today? You've spoken with him. Do you expect to see him?
President Trump will be coming in for this shameful event, and then he'll be leaving. And I don't blame him. I'm sure he'll be ready to go.
What do you think?
Other countries are laughing at us right now because this shit is embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing. Let's just keep it real. It is embarrassing. Now, there's more, because like I told you, there are other people who are not responding to this the way that mainstream media, I think, would prefer them to respond. And again, I'm going to show you another one. Here's another one. African-American man who not feeling this. And he definitely is not feeling Fannie Willis either. And he had some things to say about her. I showed this last night, but for those of you who missed it, you might want to hear this as well.
I'm here to support President Trump. You want to know why I'm here to support President Trump? Because they done did black men like this for decades. Make up charges and put them, so I know Trump is innocent. I support Trump against this corrupt, two-tiered justice system.
You see? See what's happening? This is what I was trying. Here we go. Here we go.
That's why I'm here to show my support as a black man for Trump. And I'm wearing my shirt, Niggas for Trump 2024, and I mean that.
What do you think about the indictments?
Oh, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's going around the country. You know, Fannie Willis, she went to school with my sister. She full of shit. She was full of shit then. So she's a puppet for the white liberal that is controlling everything. She's in front, but the white liberal back there pulling those strings, telling her what to do. That's what I think about her, making a fool of herself.
Do you think it's going to help his election?
Of course it is. It's going to elevate him all the way. I think we should make Trump king. That's how I feel. We should make him king.
Wouldn't that be like kind of like communistic?
No, that's nowhere near communist. Now, we're just going to make him king, but we still got our freedoms and rights and everything. He for that. Yeah, Trump for king 2024.
That's actually my...
See what's happening? This is why I said if they were going to do it, they should have done this before he announced he was running for president. And for people say, well, how are they supposed to know? And They had plenty of time. They had plenty of time. Trump left office January 2021. They had plenty of time. Come on, guys. Come on. I'll take the super chat over there, Eric. Eric's passing me the super chat, you guys, because my chat in StreamYard froze. Thank you so much for the super chat, Jennifer. Have you heard that Fannie was the DA when the Memphis chief of police started that group? I'm sorry, let me start over. Have you heard that Fannie was the DA when the Memphis chief of police started the group that murdered Tyree Nichols? There was a scandal and Fannie covered for her. I live in Memphis. people are talking. I did not know about that, but that is interesting. I know some people not really feeling Fanny that way. I do know that. And I think I missed one. There was another one. Oh, I can't go back now. I think there was another one, Eric, from Perry. It was a green one. It won't let me go all the way back. Shoot. Whenever you get a moment. While you do that, I'm going to go to the next story. All right. We're heading into this story about the BRICS expansion. And I think the United States needs to get prepared. A couple of nights ago, I covered the story about the BRICS summit taking place in Africa, in South Africa. I showed you videos of Xi Jinping stepping off the plane and people were like, here he comes. This is big. This is only like the second time he traveled in order to meet with them, right? Well, now there has been an expansion of BRICS. And I think you're going to want to hear the countries that have been invited to join. So there were countries that submitted applications to join BRICS. These countries did. There's other ones as well. Not all of them were invited. But these countries that said they wanted to join, BRICS has now offered them the invitation. And I think you need to see who these countries are, because this is going to be a totally different time for the United States.
Leaders of the BRICS alliance of 5 nations have invited another 6 countries to join. They are Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The annual
Saudi Arabia. Let me put on the caps for this one. This is important. Let me go back. I'm sorry, so you can see the names. Listen to this.
Another 6 countries to join. They are Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United
Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia. But Iran and Saudi Arabia, that's where it gets dangerous, right? Let me let her continue. I'm going to tell you why.
Arab Emirates. The annual BRICS summit is being held in Johannesburg. The leaders of Brazil, India, China, and South Africa are there, while Russia's president is on video link from Moscow. The South African president made the expansion announcement.
We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of BRICS. The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024.
In just a couple of months, there goes the petrodollar. There goes this tight buddy-buddy relationship with the United States government and Saudi Arabia. Because what's Saudi Arabia going to do? How are you going to play both sides? Saudi Arabia going to be like, yeah, we're still cool with you, U.S., but we are part of BRICS now. And if there tends to be any type of conflicts with one of the countries that's a part of BRICS with the United States government, whose side is Saudi Arabia going to take? They're probably going to take the BRICS side because they're a part of BRICS now. You see where this goes? So what does the U.S. do? The U.S. has this relationship with Saudi Arabia because of oil, right? So what do they do from here? Any word from the Biden administration? No? About this? Let's continue.
My correspondent Fahmi Miller is joining us live from Johannesburg. BRICS group attracting a level of interest rarely seen since its founding in 2014. Fahmi, the dozens of countries expressed their interest in joining, but only 6 have been accepted for now.
Yeah,
it's likely, Elizabeth, that the criteria was pretty tight in terms of who they might admit. There's been a lot of debate amongst these BRICS members around who should be admitted, when that should be done, and looking at who they've included in this admission, we see also increased representation from African countries, Ethiopia and Egypt. And South Africa has been squarely behind that, wanting African countries, the global south, to have a bigger place within this grouping. But to give us greater insight into what might have informed this decision, we're speaking to Michael Bossack, a global affairs analyst. Now, Michael, what is likely behind the admission of these 6 new members? What is it that would have taken them into the BRICS grouping?
Sure. Well, it looks like China was very, very keen to expand BRICS. In fact, the Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said it's going to breathe new vitality into the bloc. For sure it will, but the choice is very interesting. So we have Argentina, some more representation from South America, Egypt, Ethiopia, African continent. Ethiopia was, I think, a little bit unexpected. Iran, I have a suspicion there might have been some Russian maneuvering behind that. They're close allies. And then Saudi Arabia and UAE, that signals to me more cash infusion into the development bank. Missing there was Indonesia and Mexico. We were expecting them to come in as well.
So let me pause here. So that was another thing I mentioned a couple of nights ago about Mexico, because last year I thought I did talk about, I read an article on here that Mexico was interested in joining, but I noticed when we talked about the summit a couple of nights ago, Mexico was not on that list. So that gives you an update in reference to that. But what I got to say is this, when we're talking about Saudi Arabia, we're talking about Iran and some of these other countries. Look, when people tell me that they don't care about foreign policy, they don't care about what's happening across the sea, and I say, well, you should care, because foreign policy is domestic policy. If you think that this is not going to have an impact on the United States, you are wrong. One of the goals that they want of BRICS is to transition away from the US dollar, to create their own currency. So if that were to happen, what does that do to the US dollar? But honestly, you can't really become upset with them. You really can't. The way these countries have been treated by the US government for years, decades, what do you expect them to do? At some point, they're going to fight back. And what's a better way of fighting back other than war? Forming coalitions with other countries. Moving away from the US dollar and having your own currency. That's a different type of warfare, if you think about it. So I hope this is a wake-up call. I hope this is a wake-up call for the US, but I don't know.
We've repeatedly heard from the existing leadership of BRICS that this is about unity, it's about the global south, greater representation, but this comes amid heightening global tensions. While BRICS may be forming a more solid bloc globally, are there concerns around greater fragmentation?
Oh, absolutely. A couple of quick things. One is we're seeing the deterioration of these multilateral for G7, G20, APEC even, watered down communiques or none whatsoever. At least here they managed to come out with quite a big announcement about the expansion. But when you see countries like Iran coming in, and also you listen to the rhetoric coming out of the conference, for example, from people like Mr. Lula of Brazil, a lot of talk here about not using the US dollar anymore, leveling the playing field for African countries. You see quite the fragmentation. I think, just quickly, I think it's got to the point where good luck to America trying to win back the loyalty of some of these African countries. I think a lot of them are shifting more towards this direction.
There you have it. Good luck, he said. Good luck to the US, because those African countries are shifting more towards that direction. And you can't blame those African countries. They've had their resources stolen from them since the beginning of time. So if they're given this opportunity, obviously they're going to take it. Now, did you notice something? When we talk about BRICS, you see all of those leaders sitting at a table. They're trying to create a multipolar world. There's no leader of the BRICS. Does that make sense? Whereas with the United States, the US has other allies that are part of the West, like France, the UK, etc. But the US is always telling them what to do. This has gone on forever. Even when I was on George Galloway's show, George Galloway said we usually follow the lead of the U.S. We don't have a horizontal relationship with those countries. They follow our lead. When Germany chose to send Leopard tanks into Ukraine, that wasn't just something they just thought of off the top of their head. The majority of the people in Germany did not want that to happen, but Germany went along with it because they were following the lead of the U.S. government. So when Joe Biden announced that he was going to send the tanks in, Germany said, well, we feel like our hand is forced, so we got to do it too. That's not a horizontal relationship when the U.S. government is calling all the shots. So if you have all these other countries come together and they can create a multipolar world where there isn't one single country being the leader and they all are at the same level, that could change the damn game. And it says so here. Iran and Saudi Arabia are among 6 nations set to join China and Russia in the BRICS economic bloc. Now, this is from AP News. And it says here, Iran, Saudi Arabia were among 6 countries invited Thursday to join BRICS blocs of developing economies in a move that showed signs of, strengthening a China-Russia coalition as tensions with the West spiral higher. The UAE, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia were also set to enter BRICS from January 1st, 2024, joining current members Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa to make an 11-nation bloc. NATO what? NATO who? Danny Haiphong was actually the first person I saw announce this on Twitter. Danny said BRICS welcomes Argentina, Egypt, Iran, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Ethiopia to BRICS. BRICS now makes up over 37% of global GDP, more than 44% of global oil reserves, and more than 80% of global oil production. Bye-bye U.S. hegemony. There you go. And you know, it didn't have to be this way. But here we are. If you have not had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button for me, guys. That helps you out with the algo. Thank you very much. If you are new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Well, I guess not just if you're new, but if you're new, don't forget to sub. Okay. And yes, my StreamYard chat is still stuck. It's just really weird. StreamYard's been weird. Like I said, the past couple of days, but I see the YouTube chats moving. So that's important for you guys, as long as you guys get to chat with each other. Speaking of chatting, this next story here with Glenn Greenwald and Nikki Haley. Look, I am not a rocket scientist. I'm not an expert, but I will say this. I think that there are winning positions and there are losing positions. And Nikki Haley just made a statement recently in an interview that I feel is a losing position. And I don't care. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, etc. I don't think most Americans would agree with this. Let's hear what Nikki had to say. Let's bring her in.
Well, you know, you've got multiple candidates on that stage that said they wouldn't touch entitlements, including Trump. And any candidate that says they're not going to touch entitlements means that they're basically going to go into office and then leave America bankrupt. Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 8. So the way we deal with it is we don't touch anyone's retirement or anyone who's been promised in, but we go to people like my kids in their 20s when they're coming into the system and we say the rules have changed. We change retirement age to reflect life expectancy. Instead of cost of living increases, we do it based on inflation. We limit the benefits on the wealthy, and we expand Medicare Advantage plans.
What's the right age there then, Ambassador?
Well, I think we have to do the numbers. We've got to figure out what it is. But what we do know is 65 is way too low, and we need to increase that. We need to do it according to life expectancy. Well, you know, you've got multiple candidates on that stage that said they wouldn't touch entitlements, including Trump. And any candidate that says they're not going to touch entitlements means that they're basically going to go into office and then leave America bankrupt. Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 8. So the way we...
I hope everybody heard that part. By the way, the government has plenty of money. The government has plenty of money. How are these things going bankrupt when you have over an $800 billion defense budget? But that's not the part that bothered people. Is this part over here?
We deal with it is we don't touch anyone's retirement or anyone who's been promised in, but we go to people like my kids in their 20s when they're coming into the system and we say the rules have changed. We change retirement age to reflect life expectancy.
The current life expectancy or average life expectancy in the United States is 77 years of age. In other words, NIKKI wants you to work until you die. If you change the retirement age to the current life expectancy, which is 77 years old, by the way, it has decreased over the years. It significantly dropped in the United States compared to other countries. To 77 years of age, they're basically telling you, she is basically telling you to work until you die. We change the rules for my kids and say, hey, the rules have changed. As if young people already don't have to deal with enough economic issues to begin with anyway. Let me get this straight, NIKKI. You want these young kids, you want them, they're supposed to go to college, but don't take out student loans and end up with debt. But you're supposed to get a really good job without any advanced degree. Well, you can go work in construction. Everybody can't work in construction. Who's going to teach? Who's going to be the doctors? Who's going to be the nurses? Who's going to be a lawyer, etc. Right? And now these kids, they're struggling to pay off student loan debt. The kids can't afford to buy a house because they can't afford the down payment because companies like BlackRock bought up foreclosed single-family homes and increased the prices so that they're unaffordable. And you ain't got to tell me because I get the report every week. I know how expensive the houses are now compared to how they were just 2 years ago. They got to deal with all the issues with climate. And on top of that, work until you die. Because according to NIKKI, the government doesn't have the money, which is bullshit, by the way. The U.S. has plenty of money. Let me let her finish here.
Instead of cost of living increases, we do it based on inflation. We limit the benefits on the wealthy, and we expand Medicare Advantage plans.
What's the right age there then, Ambassador?
Well, I think we have to do the numbers. We've got to figure out what it is. But what we do know is 65 is way too low, and we need to increase that. We need to do it according to life expectancy. Well, you know, you've got
NIKKI thinks that 65 is too low for you to retire in this country. You guys hearing this? You hearing this? By the way, again, I don't think that's a winning position, regardless of your party affiliation. I know Republicans that don't agree with that. Work until you die, NIKKI says. Keep on working. She doesn't even know the numbers. So when she tells you, I don't know, we got to figure out what it is. How are you going to say that the 65 age is too low? Then you're going to say, move it up to the life expectancy rate or life expectancy age. And she doesn't even know what the age is. She says, we got to do the numbers. What you talking about, NIKKI? I told you, they just want the poor people to. Now, Glenn Greenwald didn't like NIKKI's comment too much. He had some things to say. Glenn said Nikki Haley has the same view as the billionaire heir owners of the New York Times. We must continue to send hundreds of billions, if necessary, indefinitely to Kyiv. But we must also tell Americans that our debt is too high, and therefore they must prepare for cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Bingo. After we watch you send billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, but you're going to cut Social Security and Medicare? Oh my God. I tell you, man. He goes on to say, again, the fact that the people with this ideology, one that has long been enriching a tiny sliver of arms dealers and the U.S. security state at the expense of ordinary Americans, had the audacity to begin the debate by praising rich men north of Richmond is nauseating. Which is true. At the debates the other night, she praised the song, right? Did she listen to what the song said? He posts this image here, how Nikki Haley built an $8 million fortune and helped bail out her parents. You see this? Now, people are not happy. I told you, this is not going to be a winning position. So News Nation talked about this. Let's get into this.
Okay, so 2024 Republican candidate Nikki Haley, she's getting a little pushback. She suggested changing the retirement age for benefits like Social Security and then limiting those benefits for wealthier Americans. But Haley says that any reforms that she's presenting now would not affect current senior citizens.
We shouldn't in any way jeopardize those that are already expecting something. It's the new ones coming in. It's those.
Let me pause here for a second. I'm sorry. There's something that I do have to say in reference to not affecting current
She
seniors.
says that any reforms that she's presenting now would not affect current senior citizens.
You know why that is? Because those are the people who show up to vote. Clap with me. Snap with me if you feel it. Those are the people who show up to vote. People 65 and older, they're the ones that have the largest voter turnout traditionally in this country. So they're never going to screw those people over. You get it? It's us. It's me. It's Gen X. It's millennials like me. It's Gen Z. We're the ones that they screw over. They don't consider us to be as important because, again, who usually shows up to vote? Let's go on.
We shouldn't in any way jeopardize those that are already expecting something. It's the new ones coming in. It's those in their 20s that are coming in. You're coming to them and you're saying the game has changed. There is a spending problem in D.C., and Republicans and Democrats have done this to us.
Okay, so Niall is here from the Hill. Good to see you. Happy Friday. You know,
she complains there's a spending problem in D.C., but when she was asked during the debate if she would support or not support sending more money to Ukraine, she kept her hand down. The only one who raised their hand was Vivek Ramaswamy. He was the only one that said he would not send more money to Ukraine. But Nikki Haley just told you we got too much money. There's too much spending that's happening, but she's willing to continue spending, just not for us.
There's this not so secret rule. You don't mess with people's Social Security. You don't talk about touching the money, but raising the age of retirement is not new. How big a deal is it for her to be talking about it now?
It is a big deal in terms of her political positioning. And I think in general in her campaign, she is trying to position herself as a teller of hard truths. The problem with that is there's political graveyards littered with people who thought that voters would respond positively to hard truths, and often they don't particularly. These proposals, which would not in this case affect people for several decades, get reduced to a headline That headline being Nikki Haley wants to raise the age for Medicare and Social Security, and then it becomes a problem.
Well, I think
if she raises the age for Medicare and Social Security, I mean, the age right now for Medicare is what, 65, right? Okay. Both of us 65. So this is another question, and we'll get into this in just a second. No, we'll get into it now. This is another question I have. If the retirement age increases, let's say they bump it from 65 to that 77, which is the average age of life expectancy in the US today. What happens to Medicare? Because then technically, wouldn't that mean that you wouldn't be eligible for Medicare until you're 77 as well? And Social Security? Think about this guy. That doesn't make any sense. You see what they're trying to do? How many people are going to make it to that point, 77, and then get to retire? And for what? I've always often argued, often argued that 65 was too high. And the reason where I got that from? The military. Because when my dad was in the military, he was eligible to retire at 40 years old. You're eligible to retire after 20 years. I don't know if it's still that way. But when I was younger, my dad was in the military. You could retire from the military after 20 years of service. They do that for those types of employees. Same thing when it comes to the schools. I never had to pay. When my dad was active duty, when I was on the basketball team, when I was in the band, I was a band person. I didn't have to pay for my instrument. I didn't have to pay for my uniform to play sports. I didn't have to pay for anything. The government paid for all those things. Those of us who grew up as like the military kids that went to the Dodge schools, we didn't have to pay for anything. So that often made me wonder, if they could do that for us, they can do that for everyone in this damn country. You should not have to be a part of the military industrial complex to get decent health care, to get a decent education, and to get this type of retirement either. So that right there really woke me up. If they can tell soldiers in the military that you can retire after 20 years, they can lower that damn national retirement age. But Nikki Haley wants to increase the age. That's not a winning position, especially during this time.
Interesting that you brought that up, the hard truths line, because I was talking about this before the show. She's brilliant. She has the experience, the relationships. She has a fearlessness about her. But in an effort to stake her claim in this race, might she come off as too brash, especially to those who aren't really familiar with her?
It's possible that she could. It's possible that what she wants to be, an assertiveness or that willingness to engage, could come across as perhaps overly aggressive on this kind of issue. And I think that these things are problems. It's a difficult needle to thread on issues that are as sensitive as Social Security. Everyone understands there's a problem with the math when it comes to Social Security. It's a problem rooted in a great thing, which is that people are living much longer. When Social Security was set up, there were 9 million Americans 65 or older. Now there are 56 million Americans of that age group. That's a good thing. We want people to live longer and live happy lives, but obviously it mangles the math of social security, and that has to be dealt with in some way.
It's also sensitive because, when you say to a candidate who's a woman, oh, don't come off too brash, it's like we have to use the same standard with men. It's just that people in this country sometimes oppose those harder truths. I want to get to President Biden accusing Republicans of wanting to cut the program, and former President Trump actually talking about it as well. Let's listen to that bite really quickly.
But right now, Nikki Haley is the main one wanting to do it. Like, I just can't believe you would even think that is a winning position, given the fact that people are coming out of a pandemic, given the fact that we're dealing with inflation. You are really going to try to sell that to the American people. We got to increase the retirement age. Quick way to lose the campaign. Quick way to lose.
We're not going back to people that want to destroy our great social security system. Even some in our own party, I wonder who that might be, that want to raise the minimum age of Social Security to 70, 75, or even 80 in some cases.
Okay, so we kind of know who he's talking about here. Is he continuing to give Nikki Haley a good ribbing, or is he kind of putting her in her place?
Well, he's talking about her, but he's also talking about Governor Ron DeSantis, who, while a congressman, backed a measure that would have raised the age to 70 for eligibility for those programs. I think that's really who he is alluding to there. Primarily, obviously, DeSantis expected to get into the race, joining Trump and Haley as the three major candidates.
All right, Niall, I know that when she's talking about the younger 20-somethings, Gen Zers and millennials, they don't even know if they're going to have any money left. At least a lot of them don't believe they will. So we'll see how she messages that with the younger voters. Thank you again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and millennials too. Don't forget about the millennials too, because see, Nikki, you know, she come from a different type of background. I want to show you guys. Let me tell you guys something about Nikki. We're going to go there. Okay. We're going to go there tonight. Nikki Haley was the governor of South Carolina when I lived in South Carolina. What a lot of people may not know, we'll pull this up as well. Nikki tries to pretend like things aren't as bleak and as bad as they seem, right? I remember she made a statement. This was a couple of years ago where she said that this isn't a racist country, yada, yada. But what Nikki Haley won't tell you is that when she was running for governor in South Carolina, there were members of her own party that made racist comments towards Nikki Haley. Nikki is Sikh, for those who don't know. Her family is from India. They made racist comments toward her. There was one politician that actually said, we already got a raghead in the White House. We don't need one in the State House. I kid you not. This was all in the papers in South Carolina. She wasn't as well known then, right? But Nikki came from her upbringing. Let me show you something here. Because see, they don't like to talk about where they really come from, okay? First of all, her name is Nimarata. Okay? Nimarata, and she has her married name, Haley. But this piece right here, I think, is important for people to see. Yes, her parents were immigrants. Yes, she helped her mom with her store. Her mom had an independent store. But her father was a professor, had been a professor, had a law degree. See, these are things you need to know when people say, oh, my parents came here with nothing. She's another one. They found the American dream. They came here with degrees, boo. Now, this part right here, look at this. So her father had a PhD. Like, it's just, I'm trying to tell you, it wasn't as tricky. This is the part I want you guys to hear. A lot of people don't know about this. See if I can make it. Haley's parents moved from India to Canada after her father received a scholarship offer from the University of British Columbia. When her father received his PhD in 1969, he moved his family to South Carolina to be a professor of biology at Voorhees College. Voorhees College was a historically Black institution. See, Nikki don't talk about this part. Now, listen to this. Her mother went on to earn a master's degree in education, taught for 7 years in Bamberg Public Schools, started a popular women's clothing boutique, Exotica International. The store closed in 2008 upon her retirement 32 years later. Listen to this part. At 12, Haley began helping with the bookkeeping in her mother's clothing shop. In 1989, she graduated from a private Orangeburg preparatory schools. Nikki Haley went to prep school. So you see, when people tell these stories about my parents came here with no money, we had to scrap and save for everything, I've noticed they always leave out that their parents came here with degrees. They make it seem like their parents came here with nothing, as in no degrees, no education, no nothing, and they really had to start from the bottom. If you already coming here with a degree, you already have a leg up, more so than the majority of Americans in this country, because the majority of Americans in this country do not have a college degree. So you already coming in with something that a lot of us don't have. And she went to prep school. So much more I wish I could say. So much more. So the point I want to make is, now that NIKKI got hers, she want to make it more difficult for you to get yours. NIKKI want to raise the retirement age, but it's not going to affect her. Like she said, it'll affect her kids, that generation. What'd that tell you about NIKKI? You see what's happening in this country? Eric, if there's, I think there's comments on Rockfin. I'll take those whenever you're ready. But do you see what's happening? And I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat or whatever, but I'm here to tell you that is not a winning position. Not at all. Thanks, Eric. I'll go ahead and take that one. Thank you for the super chat, Courtney. Sabby was in the band. Cool. What instrument did you play? Courtney, I played the clarinet. And I did not want to play the clarinet. I wanted to play the saxophone, but my band director said no. That's another story. We'll talk about that another night. I'll take the comments on Rockfin. Told me I didn't have enough air. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. I say let's make this short. Just invite all the countries we invaded. Sabby, they can use these fancy words of multipolar world all they want, but let's start calling this what it is. They are forming a global intergovernmental cooperative, or just global co-op for short. Oh, that's a good point. And thank you for this tip as well. GOP been saying Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security going bankrupt in 10 years since the past 40 years. Let's use this against them. Let's find some footage of more than 10 years ago of Republican sayings. I've heard this from my economic college professor in '88. Medicare Advantage, corporate health care. NIKKI, where's your 60 Senate vote to do this you emphasized in the debate? Oh, snap. Roger coming for. Oh my God. And thanks for this as well. Sabrina, Reagan already raised the retirement age. Read the following. The 1983 overhaul of Social Security gradually raised the age to 67, which it reached in 2022 for those born in 1960 or later, effectively cutting benefits by 13% as compared to benefits if the retirement age had remained at 65. Well, I'll be damned. Trickle down my ass. Thanks for this as well. Here, I should not have said that. That could have come out the wrong way. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you for this as well. Here it is. Put it in the chat. Thank you so much, Roger. God, someone's going to clip that somewhere. All right, let's get into our next story. Oh, God. RFK Jr. actually just had a recent interview in reference to the debate. So I showed you one of the tweets that he had last night in reference to his feelings about the GOP primary debates. But apparently he continued to want to vent. He had an interview with Fox News earlier. I think this was this morning or last night. It might have been last night. I forget. Anyway, he had this interview with Fox News where he is venting about the debate, but also he finally answers one of your questions that you have been asking for quite some time. And you're finally going to get the answer to that. And I want you to tell me, what do you think that means for this campaign? Let's get into it.
All right, just because Republicans are busy with debates, and in fact, no sooner was last night's done than they were talking about next month's debate on Fox Business. Fact of the matter is, Democrats are not nearly so busy arranging such events. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joins us right now. He is a presidential candidate challenging the president of the United States. Robert, it's always good to have you. It doesn't look, and especially when we were hearing from Cedric Richmond, the Biden-Harris campaign chief, that a debate is in the offing for you. or the Democratic Party? What do you think?
Well, we're going to keep asking for a debate. I don't know whether we're going to get one. I think it's, there's so many people. We're living in an era now, Neil, where there's so many people who have lost faith in democracy. They think the system is rigged, that the economic system is rigged, that the political system is rigged. I think.
Notice what he said. He said people have lost faith in democracy and they think it's rigged. No, we know it's rigged. We have evidence that shows that it's rigged. DNC fraud lawsuit. I don't know what he means by think.
It's really important that we have elections in both political parties that look like real democracy, where there's retail politics, where the politicians have to actually go out and meet the American public, where they have to debate opponents, where we are distinguishing ourselves from the old Soviet Union, where the party would choose, the party pangerums and commissars would choose the candidates, and there was just kind of this kabuki theater of democracy rather than real retail politics. And, particularly I think it's important today because ever since the Citizens United case, politics in this country has been driven by money. So the Democratic Party already has $2 billion in its coffers. But to raise that money, it means that President Biden and high DNC officials have to spend hours every day on the phone with political donors. And they really don't have time to see what's happening on the ground in this country, where there's a level of desperation and despair like I've never seen before. And I think it's really important that very quickly our political leaders get in touch with that and understand the urgency. Last night
I'm sorry, I have to pause here for just a second. Why is he making excuses for the DNC? They don't have the time to see what's happening on the ground. Bullshit. They know exactly what's happening on the ground. They know what's happening. They know people are desperate. They know people are struggling. They just don't care. They care about the donors and that's it. And this is something else I've noticed too, like him trying to make excuses for the DNC. That's a big warning sign about where this campaign is actually headed. There's more. Let's go on.
Watch the debate, the Republican debate, and it was really surreal for me because it seemed so tone deaf. It seemed like they were throwing around kind of cliches from the Reagan era. And I'm looking at people who are sitting at their kitchen table wondering about how they're going to pay their medical bills, wondering about how they're going to, how they're going to get the kids out of the house because nobody can afford a house anymore, how they're going to pay for food, how they're going to pay for fuel. And none of those issues was discussed. Nobody was offering policies of, here's what I'm going to do to help the declining middle class in this country.
But do you feel, Robert,
Well, before we get to that next question, I do just want to add that is correct. That is something that we did notice about the GOP primary debates. They weren't asking those questions at all. But even if they didn't ask those questions, the candidates, there was one question about the economy, and the candidates did have that opportunity to bring up those issues, and they didn't bring up those issues at all, as if it's not even happening. And that was interesting to me. It's like, really? Nothing about the inflation? Nothing about the food prices, nothing about the homelessness rate increasing, nothing about the housing costs, nothing. And that right there shows the American people you're really not in touch. You either not in touch or you're afraid to talk about it. But what are you running on? What are a lot of them running on? You can't even talk about those issues. So he's right about that. Like that was something that was weird to me, that they didn't even bring it up.
part of it is that you're kind of a problem in that environment, not you individually, but that you're kind of like a man without a political island here, that you have many in your own party, many in your own family who are aghast at you running for president and challenging an incumbent Democratic president. And you seem to be greeted favorably with many on the right. You've appeared on a Joe Rogan podcast. You have said you like a lot of what you've heard out of Vivek Ramaswamy. Ron DeSantis has in the past suggested you as an ideal FTA head. That there does seem to be more interest and respect for you on the Republican side than the Democratic side. What do you think?
So this is a big issue, right? Like, this is one that continues to be raised. I mean, a lot of people are bringing this up, is that he seems to have more people like him on the Republican side than on the Democratic side. I guess we wouldn't fully know for sure unless RFK Jr. was in the general election, right? But I think the thing is that the point that he made about you seem to be on your own political island or something like that. But see, that's the problem. The problem is the parties. The problem is the political parties. Imagine if we didn't have political parties in this country and everyone that did run for office, it's not even a such thing as an independent because there's no political parties. These are just people running. Imagine if it was that way. And yeah, there's still requirements you have to meet, certain thresholds you have to meet. But imagine if there was no party affiliation and you were just voting on people just based on the policies and not so much because you're in the same party as them. Some people do vote based on policies, but some of you just vote based on if that person is a member of your party or not, whether you agree with them on all the policies or not. But if we removed political parties from the United States government and people just ran as individuals and we just focused on the issues, that can remove a lot of this stuff. I don't really think did you know, people bring up the founding fathers? Did you know the founding fathers actually did not want political parties because they saw that political parties would create division and where the people would be beholding to their party and not so much beholding to the ideas, the political ideas that a candidate is running on, but just the fact that they're a part of a party. So the founding fathers did not want political parties. I hear people bring up the founding fathers all the times in reference to politics, but they don't mention that. Something important to know.
I think if you look at the issues that I stand for and you compare them to, for example, the issues that my father, Robert Kennedy, my uncle, John F. Kennedy, stood for, you could go down the line and check every single one of them off. You know, I'm a traditional Kennedy Democrat, a traditional liberal, anti-war, skeptical of the military-industrial complex. I want our financial, our economic policies to respond to the working poor, the working class in this country, rather than to the needs of Wall Street. I want press freedom, freedom of speech in this country, all the things that the environment, a clean environment, and a woman's right to bodily autonomy, all the issues that are traditional liberal issues are issues that I, believe in, that I'm fighting for. And incidentally, Neil, I'm getting huge response. I mean, last night I was in Richmond, and with a rally that we scheduled 24 hours before, and we were sold out, almost 500 people almost instantly. I'm getting the same response everywhere I go. My polling numbers are now within shooting distance in the key early primary states of President Biden. So I'm doing well with Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and that's what I set out to do, to try to find that.
Well, no, you're quite.
Let me pause here for a second because I'm going to tell you guys how times have changed since the Bernie campaigns. RFK Jr., and I'm not trying to shade him for this, but RFK Jr. just said he was in Richmond and they had 500 people at the town hall, right? Or the event. Bernie Sanders had thousands and thousands of people at his events. Bernie Sanders had 10,000 people at Boston Common when I went to see him there. 10,000 people. And RFK Jr. just told you 500 people showed up at a rally in Richmond. Now, granted, Richmond is not as big of a city as Boston. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is that when Bernie Sanders traveled all across this country, he had those numbers all across the country. Thousands and thousands of people showing up. In some places, 20,000 people showing up. Do you guys see how just, I don't want to say maybe nonchalant. Do you see how nonchalant people are now with the political, especially with the Democratic Party? Do you see how that passion that was there, at least going through that Bernie movement, that passion and that fire that was there before, isn't there anymore? Just something I want you to think about.
Right, and we lose sight of that, Robert, that it is a state-by-state battle. As Chris Christie was saying in another segment here, that is what matters, because we don't have a national primary. We have a series of states, of course, caucuses, and then the primaries. But having said all of that, there are people like Robert Reich, of course, who was a
Let me hold on for a second. I see a comment said that Manimus said Bernie announced a week in advance. RFK announced a few hours before. Big difference. Okay, to that I say, why is RFK announcing rallies a few hours before instead of a week in advance? And even if he did announce a week in advance, I still don't believe he would get 10,000 people there. That's the difference. Let me backtrack a little bit. Sorry. Because let him get his question in.
And here, that is what matters, because we don't have a national primary. We have a series of states, of course, caucuses, and then the primaries. But having said all of that, there are people like Robert Reich, of course, who was a former Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, or Labor Secretary, I apologize, who is worried about your emergence. He said that your candidacy saddens him, that he, referring to you, said he could have done something meaningful with his life and his name. Earlier on, he showed such promise as a staunch environmentalist, goes on to say that the candidacy that's emerged has disappointed him. And it gets back to what we were saying, or I was trying to bring up, not so eloquently, Robert, that you're this man lost between two parties. Would you ever consider a run as a third party?
Yep. Let me hold there for a second. Let me interrupt about Robert Reich. Robert Reich also was disappointed with Bernie Sanders' run. Robert Reich is disappointed with anyone who challenges the status quo within the Democratic Party. I remember Robert Reich and Chris Hedges actually had a debate about whether or not Bernie supporters should just go ahead and vote for Hillary Clinton. I remember that. I think it was on Democracy Now! And to me, it's just like, Robert, first of all, Robert ran for governor here in Massachusetts. I don't know if you guys ever knew that, but he did. That was like back in the day. Anywho, Robert is one of these people that he's really good at identifying the problem. I'll give Robert credit for that. If you said, Robert, why do we have these issues in the labor force in this country? Robert can give you a whole book of information and details and tell you why things are the way that they are. He's very good at that. But Robert is never willing to tell you to break away from the status quo and the establishment in order to fix and combat that problem. That's the problem that Robert has. Again, when you ask him about labor issues, he can talk about all of these labor issues. He'll tell you he's for the workers. He'll tell you all that stuff. He'll break it all down. He's written multiple books. There's a lot of speaking engagements. But that being said, Robert still tells you to stay in the same system that is continue to screw over the workers. He doesn't want you to break away from that. I don't know why people keep bringing this guy on. I turn on every time I see, whether it's Fox News or CNN, MSNBC, I guess I expect it on establishment media. But even when I see him on Democracy Now! I'm like, why do you guys keep talking to this guy? He's going to tell you the same thing every time. Here's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. But Robert is never going to give you a solution to that problem that's actually going to bring about any real fundamental change. That's the problem with Rob. So yes, it doesn't surprise me that Robert opposes RFK Jr. challenging Joe Biden, because Robert also opposed Bernie Sanders challenging Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, running in 2020. So it just, I think some of these people we need to stop talking to. Like, we don't need to hear from Robert Reich again. We don't need to hear from James Carville or Carwell, whatever the hell his name is. Stop bringing this guy on. It's just the same old tired lines over and over. Get some new blood and new energy there. That's not just going to tell people, come onto the show and tell people what the problem is, but it's going to come onto the show and tell people how to fix the damn problem. Damn it. That's what I'm asking. So Robert mad. Now listen to this. Robert Reich is mad at Robert Kennedy. Now let me go back before he answers this question.
That there are people like Robert Reich, of course, who was a former Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, or Labor Secretary, I apologize, who is worried about your emergence. He said that your candidacy saddens him, that he, referring to you, said he could have done something meaningful with his life and his name. Earlier on, he showed such promise as a staunch environmentalist, goes on to say that the candidacy that's emerged has disappointed him. And it gets back to what we were saying, or I was trying to bring up, not so eloquently, Robert, that you're this man lost between two parties. Would you ever consider a run as a third-party candidate?
So here's the question that many of you have been asking, and some of you have emailed me and asked me, do you guys think RFK, Sabby, do you think that he'll da-da-da? Well, here's your answer, folks. Tell me what you think. The chat is working again in Super StreamYard, so great.
No, I'm a Democrat. I'm a traditional Democrat, and part of my mission here is to summons the Democratic Party back to its traditional ideals. And I'm not surprised that the people who are aligned with the DNC, people who are closely aligned with the White House, are troubled by my candidacy. I'm a threat to President Biden. And, I would love to debate Robert Reich about what he thinks the problem is with me or any other Democrat, I think.
We're just going to go back a little bit here. So you guys heard that, right? The answer to that question, as Tia mentions, hell no. No, he's not going to. So we can stop asking that now. And what that tell you, I really do believe that RFK Jr. is going to endorse Joe Biden. I really do believe it, especially a tweet he put out today saying that he is not going to run a mean-spirited campaign against Joe Biden. I'm like, well, he's definitely going to run a mean one against you. Now, he says he would like to debate Robert Reich. Listen to this. This is the part that was kind of funny to me.
Mission here is to summons the Democratic Party back to its traditional ideals. And I'm not surprised that the people who are aligned with the DNC, people who are closely aligned with the White House, are troubled by my candidacy. I'm a threat to President Biden. And, I would love to debate Robert Reich about what he thinks the problem is with me or any other Democrat. I think.
It's interesting. He said he would like to debate Robert Reich, but what happened to the debate that was supposed to happen between him and Max Blumenthal? I keep hearing him say he wants to debate people, but these debates they're not happening. What happened to the debate that was supposed to happen between him and Max Blumenthal? I've seen him say this multiple times now that he's debating him in a couple weeks. Max announced on Twitter, nobody's told him that. That's not what he was told. There's nothing scheduled, apparently. But you're going to debate Robert Reich. Okay.
The reaction to me is oftentimes negative. Those who have negative reactions to me are oftentimes reacting to secondhand characterizations of my positions that they're hearing from MSNBC and CNN that are simply not accurate.
Yeah.
When people talk to me in person and hear my ideas and the reasons I'm running, I have a very, very high conversion rate. And I think most people are surprised to find out that, that my positions are pretty much common sense.
And they are resonating with a lot.
But it's not just the positions, I think, that people hear on mainstream media, which they have been exaggerating some things and lying about some things, but it's also some of the positions that you've said in these interviews. some of the positions that you've said in these events and these videos go viral, like on Twitter. I mean, it's some of the things that you have said. Just like the whole Max Blumenthal thing. That's really weird to me. Just have the conversation with dude already.
A lot of people are imitating you, and you do pack these venues, to be fair, Robert. I do know that some are trying to even copy you when it comes to even little things, like maybe physical workouts. I noticed Vivek Ramaswamy has his own workout video, a shirtless tennis scene, and I'm thinking of you with the weightlifting thing, and I'm wondering what you started here.
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen Vivek without his shirt on, but
well, this is him working out with his wife. He's obviously big in working out. I know you are as well. We're kindred souls there, Robbie. I'm a workout machine myself, but enough about me. What do you make of this direction? Because you've started something, and I don't know who's next or what's next, but this is important to a lot of folks. Maybe a response to, you know, having older guys leading each ticket for the time being.
Well, you know, my uncle, John Kennedy, when he became president, he launched the President's Council on Physical Fitness because he believed it was important for Americans to be in shape. And today we have the highest chronic disease burden on earth. We have 64% of Americans now suffer from chronic disease, and that's one of the reasons we have the highest death rate from COVID in the world.
You know, it's interesting because thinking back on it, didn't Michelle Obama used to have like workout? I thought she had workout videos or something at one point, like when Obama was president. I thought she used to do, she did nutrition, but I think she also did like an exercise like thing too as well. I don't know. I exercise at least like 5 days a week. So I'm usually doing like, I don't do the jumping thing that Vivek and his wife was doing. I don't like jumping. You know, I don't like to jump. I don't like the jumping motion. But I do resistance training. And I do think it is important to like take care of yourself, right? So sometimes you guys might see me on Twitter. I'll post up like pictures that say what you can do while you're at the gym and stuff like that. But I do resistance training, and it does make a big difference. Like 5 days. Sometimes I've done 4 days, but usually it's 5 days a week. First thing in the morning, get it done, get it out of the way. And it gives me a lot of energy for the rest of the day. But also a strength is really important. So like the jumping thing, I don't know what the jumping does, but I do strength training. So I'll have to ask people, what does the jumping do?
We have only 4.2% of the global population, but we had 16% of the COVID deaths in this country. Why was that? Well, one reason is bad management. But the other reason is we have the highest chronic disease burden in the world. And the CDC itself has acknowledged that the average person who died from COVID in the United States had 3.8 chronic diseases. So they had obesity, they had diabetes, they had asthma, and others. Right. And so that, you know, if we really care about public health in this country and about stopping the deaths from chronic disease, we need to start caring for ourselves. And I think it's good for our political leadership, whether it's Vivek or whoever. Yeah. To try to inspire the American public to get back in shape.
Well, if you could.
Yeah. Get out there and get moving. I agree with him about that. Get out there and get moving if you can. By the way, some of these things, I'll show it to you guys at some point. But some of these things that you can do at home, like you don't have to have a membership at the gym. I thought about showing you guys that one time, probably at the end of a stream. I'm going to show you some of the things that you can do, because I have a couple of pictures where you really don't need to go to the gym to do these things. But now that the chat is moving again over here, Notori, I don't like to jump. My boobies would knock me out. Yeah, it's just the jumping thing is weird. Like I don't like jump. Like I don't like the way it feels, you know. Like I don't know. Hector says Sabby can't jump. Yeah. I don't. Brother Daniel says jumping is for fast twitch muscle endurance. Oh, I I see you guys know some things about working out. The Oracle says Vivek should challenge Trump to a jump off contest. Robert says legs are the biggest muscles, increases blood flow. Oh, well, I see you guys know some things here in the chat about this stuff. I know I was trying to be discreet, Dwayne. Oh my gosh. I don't like that word. I don't like the T word. Don't like it. Because there's a skit with Dave Chappelle where he kept saying that. It was the one from Chappelle Show, and they made fun of the show The Real World. And Dave Chappelle's character was like, he said, Katie has some big old, and that word. And I was like, oh, I don't like that word. So anyway, I don't know what to say. I'm not looking at the comments anymore. Okay. But anyway, I totally get his frustration in reference to the GOP primary debates and also in reference to, of course, the way that the DNC is treating any Democrat candidate, but this was to be expected. And I think a lot of us learned this from Bernie Sanders campaigns. So if RFK Jr. just told you he's not going to run as a third party candidate, that's not his thing. So then the question is, what happens after the DNC doesn't allow him to become the nominee? Where are those RFK Jr. supporters going to go to? I think a lot of them are going to vote for Trump. I really do. You guys are still talking about the boobs. I'm not going to do it. Oh my God. Okay. I forgot about Washington. Damn it. I'm still going to have to come back and do Washington. I don't know what I did. I left off Washington. I thought I had it, but I didn't. I'll have to do it when I come back on Tuesday. All right. So heads up, guys. I am not streaming this Sunday. So no Sabby show this Sunday. I'm taking this weekend, the full weekend off. So you'll see me again Tuesday evening. So please enjoy clips during that time and all that fun stuff. So I don't know what to say, you guys. Like, I really don't know. Oh my God. Okay. That's my cue. It's time to go. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Other than that, guys, have a good night. Keep up the fight.